Hey everybody, I want to do an update on my office tank here. I've started medicating my Bolivian ram that's in here. I think it's got intestinal parasites. I'm not 100% on that, but it's my best guess, so that's where we're going to go as far as medicating the fish. Now, when I got in here to do the first big water change, you're supposed to leave the lights out and do a big water change the day after you put the food in there, and so on and so forth. So, we've done the water change, and I noticed once again while I was in there doing the water change that when I was filling the tank back up, all of the little bit of detritus that you can see swirling around right there, you can see there's some movement. It was just absolutely still before. There was no movement at all. And I chalked it up partially to the amount of vegetation that's in here that really does slow down the amount of water flow. But I've got a filter on here that's designed for up to a 30-gallon tank, and I was getting a trickle of water coming out of it. So I changed the filter, of course. I've recently cleaned out the biosponge, so I knew that shouldn't have been too clogged up. When I pulled the filter out, the filter was only that dirty. I mean, that's not clean, but it's certainly not so dirty that it's going to prevent water flow. So I went ahead and pulled the plumbing off of there. I just pulled the little, that just sort of clips down and notches in there. And so when I pulled it out, the first thing I saw was white water mold. It's a kind of fungus that grows specifically on plastics, ABS plastic in particular, which I believe is what this sort of white, clearish acrylic possibly is. I'm not sure 100% on that, but I've had issues in the past with not on the black part, but this clear plastic will get that white water mold growing on it. And my tank that's in the basement that I use as a grow out tank for my plants, that was absolutely infested with the stuff one time. It floated around the tank in sheets. It didn't really attach to anything except plastic material, but it was just huge clumps of it. It was still breeding in the tank and floating around in big fungal mats. It was nasty, and it took me a long time to get it out of there. So I'm not really happy about the fact that it's in this tank. It's actually a big plague in the pool industry. People that have pools with all the filtration and the plumbing and all of that, they get this growing in those environments. So if you can have it in a pool that's either got salted or chlorinated or some kind of sterilized water, then that gives you an idea of how difficult it can be to eradicate out of something like a fish tank. So it really was. Those pipes were really full of that white water mold. I had to go in the bathroom and run hot water through it and really scour it out. And now you can see I've actually got some significant water flow again. And we're actually getting the water flowing all the way down the length of the tank, and we're getting some movement down at this end. Doesn't need to be a lot. I'm not necessarily trying to pick up the detritus and have it swirl all the way back and, keep all of the debris in the tank suspended until it gets picked up by the filter. That's not the intention. But just so that there's no oxygen pore zones or anything like that, I just want good flow all around the tank. And as long as we've got visible movement of that little detritus swirling around, and that's all I really need. I just need some kind of full tank circulation, and I was just not getting any movement at all down here while that was all clogged up. So as far as the rest of the medication process and all that goes, I don't know what to say other than it's supposed to be a 2 to 3 times a week treatment, and I'm supposed to do that for like a month or 6 weeks or something. It's supposed to be a long-term treatment in order to get this ram medicated. Now, I did have one person who's had experience with this medication tell me that it's really important to get the ram or the target fish to eat the food as quickly as possible, because the medicine that's on it will just rinse right off and just go into the tank and be in the water, and that's not effective. You have to get the fish to eat the flakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop feeding the tank. I'm going to fast the tank, and so it'll go 2 days with no food at all, and then I'll put the medicated flakes in there, and hopefully everyone will gobble them up real quick. And then again, I can do a water change the next day, wait 2 more days without feeding the tank, get everybody good and hungry again, and do that, and maybe a few cycles of that to really get the medication in the ram That's the important thing, is I just need that ram to get some medication in it. If you look at it closely, you can just see how skinny and thin its body looks. It's almost got a concave belly. And again, I know they're not supposed to be big rotund fish. It's not going to look like a cory cat, but it's also not supposed to be concave either. It is supposed to have some roundness to its belly, and this has none. And I've had it for a significant amount of time now, well over a month now, I'd say at this point. I'm terrible at keeping track of time, but I'd say at least it's been a month since I've had that fish. It should certainly be recovering from, being thin at the fish store. And its counterpart, the other one that I have in the basement that I bought at the same time from the same tank, looks much healthier than that one. So I definitely think something's going on with that. It could be just genetics. It could be just a bum fish. I got it at PetSmart. I've not had, amazing success with getting rams at PetSmart. But, I've had some success. So we're going to try the medication, chalk it up to experience. I've never medicated with this stuff before. I've never medicated in this type situation before. So, again, just chalk it up to experience. Seems kind of a bummer that I got to pay, $3 for a fish and then spend $25 or whatever on medication and all this time and effort on something that should have been just a few dollars that just went in the tank and looked pretty for a few years. But that's how it goes sometimes in the fish keeping hobby. And again, I'm just chalking it up to experience. I'd like to really nurse this one through and get it healthy and let it have a good long life in my tank here. If nothing else, just so I can say I've successfully carried a fish through some kind of illness, because my record's not very good when it comes to having sick fish. They usually don't recover unless it's something simple like ick. I can get fish through an ick outbreak without much issue, but other than that, I've not had a lot of success with nursing fish through illnesses. So anyway, make what you want of that. That's just a basic update of what's going on here. I'm going to continue with the treatment, and we'll continue to update as things change and time goes on. So make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of those updates or anything else I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. And there's a last little look at my huge bushy swamp weed. Almost done with the flowers now. I'm down to the last few purple ones. And then I'm going to have a ton of seed heads after that. So I think I'm going to let some of those seeds dry out and do the seed thing, and plant a bunch of seeds. So who knows? Like I said, subscribe, and you'll find out maybe in a couple of months from now if I don't have a bunch of hygrophila or temple plant or swamp weed, whatever you want to call it, but it's hygrophila is the actual plant name, one of the hundreds of species of hygrophila. But there you go. There's my update. Again, make sure you're subscribed. Don't forget, this one is my office tank. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.